Big thanks go out to Taiwa for supporting today's video via Patreon. Ojer Axonil versus Caverns, Zer, and partners Timin and Rona. No ramp for us there, but we can go slow and get down the rampaging Ferocidon maybe, and hope to get into something. Maybe Fiery Confluence whites the board. Not the best hand we could keep, but we'll try it. Can maybe get rid of some fast mana with the Abrade as well. Draw into a land on turn 1. And there we go, a turn 1 Sol Ring, so we'll be blowing that up. An unexpected windfall after the other opponents just get out tap lands, including a Vesuva over here, copying the remote isle. So blow up the Sol Ring with the Abrade. Veteran Armourer will give the other creatures a +1 buff to toughness. A Felwar Stone from the Zer player. And Caverns throwing out a Looter Il-Kor, so that has Shadow and will loot, of course, hence the name. So pretty much unblockable. And another land for us, so not going to struggle on mana this game apparently. Get out the rampaging Ferocidon, start chipping away at people who want to play creatures. A Drogskull Infantry now is a 2-2, can be cast as an aura from the bin. And the 2-2's going in at Zer. I think I'll be concentrating on Zer myself as well. And thanks to the Felwar Stone, our opponent's able to make white mana and goes in for the commander. And the 1-1 goes in at Zer as well, so as long as we all bully Zer, we should be able to handle him quite nicely. He won't be able to go after all of us that much. There are some enchantments that will deal with all opponents. Most of them will be targeted removal, I would think. That was ninjutsu'd out for a Prosperous Thief, so going to make a bit of mana with that. And then the Looter Il-Kor out again. Alright, an Inferno Titan is nice. So are we just going for the unexpected windfall here then? I want to be playing my commander once we've actually got some means of protection in play. One thing that's worth pointing out as well, someone pointed this out to me in the comments section in the last video. You only have to deal 4 damage total with this, not 4 damage to every opponent like I thought it was, so that's a lot easier to trigger. Something like hitting with this and getting down the Inferno Titan would be able to flip that round, but obviously needs a lot of mana to do that. I think I'll just hold up the unexpected windfall here. And yeah, do we show our opponents that we're looking at Zer as well? Opening ourselves up to an attack, but we'll do that. Field of the Dead from the Anthem player now. And again, the 2 white cards going in towards Zer. Could have blocked one of them, but decided against it. And now we see another commander in Rhoda, Geist Avenger. Zer down to 27 life with a full grip by turn 4. Goes into the red zone as you would expect, and decides to go after an Astral Slide with that. Alright, more mana fixing in the form of the Commander Sphere. Caverns Obscura Oculus now. And again, we are bullying the Zer player in the red zone. Caverns going to make the ninja unblockable. And connives a Slaughter the Strong into the bin. Alright, and Zer deciding to give up because he's tired of being bullied, but bring a Zer deck to a table, that's bound to happen. Alright, so let's go for Unexpected Windfall at the end of the turn. And discard a land to that, draw 2, draw into another land, and another means of more mana with the Solemn Simulacrum. Alright, a Burning Earth. Whenever a player taps a non-basic land for mana, 1 damage to that player. 4 cards over here, 5 over here. Do we challenge our opponents to deal with the Burning Earth? Yeah, we can go for Burning Earth here and then get down our commander. And they'll have to tap mana to deal with our commander, you would assume. And we'll hold back the rampaging Ferocidon to make it more difficult for our opponents to attack, although this Esper player shouldn't struggle, you would think. The other alternative there was to get down the Inferno Titan, but we would have had to lose a treasure token, and that would have had us on 7 mana next turn, so we couldn't get down Burning Earth and our commander. Our commander and Inferno Titan might have been good enough. That may have been the play. A storage counter going on the Calciform pools. And then a Patrician Guy, seeing another spirit, that's an Anthem effect, and spells cast from the graveyard cost 1 less, so they've gone for at least a Disturb deck, maybe other means of casting things from the bin. And now the 3-4 goes into the right, as does the commander, so not worried about us. I would think that both of the players would start targeting us, but maybe these two are going against each other. So the commander's trading blows in the red zone. Not too many non-basics from our opponent, but it'll still start mounting up as soon as we get our commander into play. Noteworthy that it does affect us as well, but we've got a lot of basics in this deck, as you typically do in not only mono-coloured decks, but particularly mono-red decks. And then we see a Dousing Dagger, which will become a non-basic land at some point, giving the plant tokens over to this player. So Rampaging Ferocidon going to deal some more damage. Now we could get rid of a decent number of creatures with the Fiery Confluence still, just by dealing 2 damage to each creature. There'd be a debuff on toughness here, which would cause this to die, which would cause a debuff on this, so there'd be a bit of a chain reaction there. Anyway, Dousing Dagger placed onto the Ninja, which is about to be made unblockable, I imagine. That is currently a 6/4. And now we take the hit from the Ninja and from the... yeah, from all 3 creatures here, actually. Discarding a land to the Connive. Alright, so we've got a 2/4 double striking commander, and then a couple of unblockables here, so not willing to let go of the Ferocidon. I will pass the turn. So the Thief does land and gets us into a treasure token. So makes a treasure, flips to the Lost Vale, and discards a land to the Looter Ilkor. So has 6 mana to play with now, with 4 cards in hand. Tapping that down for 3 blue will deal a damage with the Burning Earth. And now see a Ledger Shredder for some more Connive. Then a Dauntless Dismantler. Artifacts your opponent's control enter tapped. And then for white XX and sacrifice it, destroy each artifact with mana value X. So time to make use of our treasure tokens, I think, and we get into a Bone Splitter, which is 1 to play, 1 to equip. This is an interaction that we didn't see in the last video, so we'll see if we can get it going here. There's blue mana being held up, but we need to try and get our commander down at some point this game. So 1 damage dealt to us from the Ferocidon. And then maybe our opponent puts 3 mana into this in order to blow up the Bone Splitter. That won't get rid of the treasure tokens though, so I'm going to try and keep hold of them. They are ramp as long as they stay in play. And if not, then we haven't missed out on any spells anyway. That's the second spell we've played, so the Ledger Shredder will Connive. Gets a plus counter on it because discarded a Dimir Infiltrator. And the equipment comes into play tapped, but it doesn't matter 1 bit, so... that is now a 6/4 commander, so every ping that we deal to our commander will be, or to our opponents, will be upgraded to 6 damage instead. So we just need to hope our commander survives at this point, otherwise it's a Fiery Confluence next turn, I think. And our opponents will have to be careful with tapping their non-basics here, because the Burning Earth putting something on the stack means that they won't be able to undo the action once they've done it. So we've greatly depleted our opponent's mana. Unfortunately, there's still white mana available for swords and path and things like that, generous gift, and they won't take any damage to the basics. Alright, so tapping down the Field of the Dead will deal 6 damage. Putting a storage counter on the pools again. That wasn't tapped for mana, so doesn't deal any damage. And now a Verity Circle. Whenever a creature an opponent controls becomes tapped, if it isn't declared as an attacker, you may draw a card. And for 5 mana, you can tap it. Not really seeing any tap abilities from our opponents, but I'm guessing our opponent's looking to tap things down with the Timin here. And now our opponent's starting to see what we've got going, so they'll start ganging up on us now, I imagine, as they probably should. Just going in with the 2/3 flyer though. A surprising lack of flyers for a spirit deck. And now if Camis wants to tap his 3 non-basics, he just played another basic there. If he wants to tap those down, it's going to take 18 damage. So deciding to go straight through to combat, probably goes all in at us. Alright, so again the Ninja is going to Connive and become unblockable. Discarding a Wonder to give everything flying here. So that is 5 damage from this going at us. The Looter goes in at the left. We get the Commander again with double strike. And we're getting the 2/4 Ledger Shredder as well, everything with flying. Oh, actually, no, not everything with flying. They need to control an island for the Wander, and they do not. So we could block the Camis here, but I'm not looking to trade, so we'll just leave it. Currently, keeping our opponents from tapping non-basic lands and from playing creatures. Would be good to get more effects like this in play. So, first strike damage dealt with the Prosperous Thief first, from the commander that is. So that triggers that for a treasure token, then it triggers again. So ramping quite nicely with that Ninja. Then it is a Court of Ardenvale. At the beginning of your upkeep, return a permanent with mana value 3 or less from graveyard to hand. If you're the Monarch, then it goes to the battlefield instead. Well, it's not removal at least. They've still got plenty of mana to play with without tapping these down though. 1 card in hand. And then drawing to the Monarch at the end of the turn. Alright, so, by some miracle, we've managed to keep our commander in play. The One Ring is very tempting. That actually buys us a turn. So why don't we go for the One Ring first and see what we draw into. I'm actually remembering this time that we don't have to put mana into the ability, because I always forget that. On Magic Arena you have to pay 1 for this in order to activate it. And it's noteworthy that the Esper player is holding up priority here. May have just drawn into some kind of counter magic or removal. Allows the One Ring into play. Of course it comes into play tapped, so we can't make use of it, but it was mainly for the protection anyway. So I'm fine with casting the Fiery Confluence here, I think. So maybe it's 2 damage to each creature and 2 damage to each opponent, which will be upgraded to 6. No artifacts that we really care about blowing up. And we don't necessarily need to blow up a bunch of creatures here because of the protection on the One Ring, but it saves us doing it next turn, frees up some mana for us to maybe get down this Inferno Titan. We have slowed down a little bit on mana. Okay, treasure tokens now being cracked. And there we see the Teferi's protections, so getting that out of our opponent's hand isn't the worst. Force them to crack treasures as well. Yeah, all we really would have got is the Looter Il-Kor from our opponent there. Wouldn't have blown anything else up over here, so just trying to save himself some life maybe. And then I suppose we might as well attack this player because this has Menace. They've got 3 power on this and our commander now has 2 damage markers on it, so we'll hold that back. Again, we've got protection, so not worried about the swing back from the Esper player. No point swinging in for our opponent. I mean, it has vigilance, but we've both got protection from combat damage, so just passing straight through the turn, holding up mana. And we never had a chance of taking the monarchy away from our opponent anyway. So is now able to grab back a Restless Reef, which still isn't an island for our opponent. So the wonder's still irrelevant. Does have an island in the bin. Tapping down that for some mana will deal 6 damage, going down to 22 from 28. And then Orzhov Basilica comes down and bounces a land. And there is a Smuggler's Copter. Is a creature, but, well, is an artifact vehicle until it's crewed, so does not trigger the Ferocidon. And the Esper player will want to keep making mana with the Ninja over here, so will likely keep swinging. So just going in with the Il-Kor, and the commander with 1 card in hand wants to loot it away apparently. Discarding a Vesuva, which he must have bounced to the bounce land. Played that on turn 1 if you remember. So making a treasure as ever, and discarding again to the Looter Il-Kor. This time it is a Horde Robber. Oh, and the Looter Il-Kor was given double strike by the commander, so triggering both of those effects again. Really searching for an answer here. And then again discarding an island. I think he keeps forgetting about this Wander. He's had access to 2 islands at this point and missed both of them. Anyway, the One Ring not going to deal any damage to us because we haven't been able to put a burden counter on it yet. Okay, there is a big score. Can make treasures with that. They will come into play tapped, we will remember, so it's nowhere near as good. Draw once with the One Ring, and that is our land for the turn. It will deal 1 damage to us with the Burning Earth, but nowhere near as worried about that as our opponents will be. Alright, so let's see if we're allowed to get down an Inferno Titan. Esper player holding up priority again. Had plenty of time to deal with our commander, unfortunately. This is the downside of Axonil. If you can protect it, then great, but if it sits on the board this whole time waiting for a swords or a bounce or something, then yeah, it's a good way to deal with it. We'll deal 6 damage here, 6 damage here, and ping that Looter Il-Kor, and then we will take 1 to the Ferocidon as well. Alright, so managing to get rid of the Il-Kor. Our opponent down to 16. 7 over here. Is he going to have the Agonjo that's going to deal 4 damage to an attacker? Maybe should attack him with the Rampaging Ferocidon. Could switch off the rest of his non-basic mana by going in with the Ojer Axonil as well, but yeah, I think I'd rather take my chances of holding back for another turn. Might be that this player can get us next turn. But it's been a fun one regardless. I think we've stalled the board quite nicely. Can't swing in the Ferocidon over here because our opponent's got too much toughness at this point. Does have something over here though. He's doing something at the end of our turn. And putting another counter on the Calciform Pools, this time with a basic. So we've allowed this opponent 1 tap with a non-basic, which might make all the difference. If we'd swung in with the Ferocidon, then these would be switched off, like I said. And again, just holding back and deciding to pass. So it may well be the Esper players to win here, thanks to not being able to get rid of this. This is the thing that's kept them in it, because they've been able to make treasures so consistently. The Prosperous Thief has been a really good one for them, especially with double strike and a consistent unblockable. If they manage to actually make an island here, then might be worth doing. Can get this in the air as well. Still got some basics and treasures to make use of at the end of the turn. And now it is Zareth. But that is going to be 6 damage from the Rampaging Ferocidon. Not sure my opponent remembered that. But should still be able to get us, I imagine. Now going after an island from the bin to give everything flying will definitely have us, I think. They've got 14 on us exactly here, but they will have a double striker that they can play with as well. Did not crew the Smuggler's Copter, which might have been worth doing with this thing. And we had damage coming from the One Ring as well, so it was always going to be a narrow one here, I think. The Zareth and the white creature going at the left, we take everything else seemingly. So now targeting this for the Connive, and throwing away a Sol Ring to put a plus counter on it. The Commander has double strike, so that's 4, 9, and only 11 damage to us. That's not right, surely. Surely they can get us here. So we go down to 3. The Prosperous Thief has already triggered once from the first strike again. And so there's 2 more triggers on the stack here. And a Zareth Sand trigger as well. So targeting with that is a Veteran Armourer. So a creature coming into play under our opponent's control. I think he keeps forgetting about the Rampaging Ferocidon here. It might be that he can win. Maybe go for an extra turn or something. But yeah, bringing that into play will deal 6. Could have had rid of us there. I'm not sure what's going on here if our opponent's just miscalculated something. But we can get rid of both players with an Inferno Titan. Draws with the Monarch at the end of the turn, which he's managed to keep hold of all this time. So we lose 1 life to the One Ring. We have to win this turn anyway. So we go down to 2. There is a Sol Ring. Probably ditch that to the big score. Oh, Solemn Simulacrum makes more sense, although Sol Ring comes into play tapped. Yep, let's worry about that in a minute. We'll go Trample damage and Inferno Titan to the right, and then some Menace damage into the left, just in case Inferno Titan's trigger doesn't do it. But it's 6 damage, 6 damage, and we'll just deal another damage here, just in case that's of any relevance. Alright, and that manages to do it. So yeah, playing it out is the thing to do, as I've said a million times on this channel. You never know when an opponent's going to make a mistake. I'm not sure what he was thinking there. Maybe he miscalculated something. But yeah, all he really had to do was turning sideways towards us, like completely target us, because I'm not sure that this player's going to come back. I mean, maybe he gets into a board wipe or something, but he's been struggling on mana all game, unfortunately. So yeah, managing to clinch that one with the big score. We would have drawn into Deflecting Swat. We needed all game pretty much, but luckily our opponents never had any spot removal. And then a Phial of Galadriel as well, which is useful for when we empty our hand, which I imagine we'll do quite consistently in this mono-red deck. Anyway, hopefully you all enjoyed this revisit to Ojer Axonil. We're in spoiler season for the next set already, so I'm hoping that the interest in this now old set, even though it only came out a few weeks ago, hasn't dwindled too much. Ojer and Axonil is a really fun one. Massive thank you to the patrons for their support as well. I'm tribalkai. Thank you for watching.